Thank you, Ishad. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Billy, and I hope I have some answers or some good news for you, especially when you're talking about drug cost and hopefully, like Madam Chan's story, the local pharmaceutical industry will be able to help in some way. I think the panel discussion talked a lot about not just one stakeholder which will be able to resolve this huge challenge we face. It involves many parties, and I think the local manufacturing industry can also help in some ways. Can I have my slides up, please? Okay. Thank you. Firstly, I just want to take a little bit of time to explain who we are. Some of you may not know, but the Malaysian Organization of Pharmaceutical Industries was established in 1981. So Malaysia had started to manufacture drugs, and these drugs were basic drugs, things like paracetamol, vitamins, and so on, way back then. But 43 years later, and now we have a different industry. We have at least 30 well-established companies who are manufacturing prescription drugs in Malaysia. We have moved on from the basic small molecules, which are the tablets, capsules, syrups, and so on, to higher technology manufacturing. I think during COVID, I think many of you probably would have heard Pharma Niaga, one of our members, was also a part of the overall system to support the needs of the country in fighting against COVID. We were one of the fastest countries in this region anyway to immunize patients or the population in Malaysia, primarily because we had a local partner, although we depended on the Pfizer's vaccine, AstraZeneca's vaccine, and so on. But a large population, about 30% of the people of Malaysia, were inoculated with the Sinovac vaccine, which was done locally, filled and finished by Pharma Niaga. So what I was trying to describe to you is an example of how a local manufacturer is playing its part to support the needs of the country. Okay? No matter what people say, the drug cost is not important. But in cancer care, it plays a huge impact to the patient's cost. All right, in cancer care. In other treatment, maybe not much. In cancer care, it plays a significant portion. All right, it's not a small amount. So the cost of drugs is a key component for an individual. All of us, it plays an important component. Now, let me also share a few things. Got a quick infographics here about the local industry in Malaysia. You may not know. As I said, there are about 30 companies well established. We have multinationals like Bibron here. We have one of the leading biosimilar companies in Malaysia called Biocon from India, who's based here. We have now a Middle East company called Novogen. We have public listed companies, we have GLCs, we have small and medium industries as well. But what we do is that this statistics is based on a 2022 statistics, which is a survey, and IQVR is an international survey company. I just want to let you know that one out of every two Malaysians are actually consuming drugs manufactured in Malaysia. And this is because the government of Malaysia is actually now having a generic and biosimilar policy to procure drugs which are generics and biosimilars. This is a policy, right? Number one. So we are now supplying a lot more, and this will even grow as the years go by. Number two, 65% of the generics are all manufactured in Malaysia. Gone are the days where we relied on supplies from India and other countries. We are now manufacturing it locally. There is this list called the National Essential Medicine List, which is essential medicines guided by WHO, which the Ministry of Health ensures that we have supplies. Nearly 50% are manufactured locally, and we have got a project with the government to increase this up to 70%. The local industry is continuously investing, and in just 1 year, we have invested almost 600 million ringgits in R&D, mainly more development work, upgrading of manufacturing facilities to upkeep. And a lot of our members are now even FDA approved sites, EMA approved sites. Yeah, these are all stringent regulatory authorities, yeah, where we are complying to. Finally, we also employ over 14,000 people in our little industry. But more importantly is 50% of those employed are all graduates. We are a high knowledge industry. Obviously, we bring in a lot of chemists, pharmacists, we have PhD holders and so on. So this is just a snapshot to give you a feel of the industry in Malaysia. Now, before I go to the next slide, I also want to tell you, in 2023, Malaysia's consumption of medicines or drugs was over 11 billion ringgit, and 9 billion of it are prescription drugs. 9 billion. Yeah. Now, if you look at the generics and biosimilar slice of that 9 billion, it's about 2.7 billion. Okay. The rest are all innovator drugs, which are under patent, and these are innovations which the innovators have brought in to help human beings to be treated. So obviously it's a high cost. It's a high cost because there's a huge amount of cost put in researching. Yeah. Billions of dollars are spent, and therefore the cost of these drugs are high. But once they become a generic or the patent starts to run out, then the prices of the drugs drastically drop. The same molecule, it drops. And I will share with you some examples of how that impact has helped many patients. Before I move to that, I think the challenges we face is obviously the affordability gap. No matter what people say, I mean, if it's a cough and cold, we just go to the pharmacy and get a drug to treat ourselves. Simple. But when you talk about cancer, these drugs are pretty expensive, right? Very expensive. I think one of our uh, audience picked up just now, about 20,000 for 3 months. It's a lot of money. Yeah. So how do we, start to reduce that affordability? And then because we are relying on imports, the supply chain vulnerability is also an issue. We got to address that. Yeah, we can't be relying on importation. Many countries during COVID-19 had issues in terms of procuring drugs. How can we do that? The third point is the infrastructure and expertise. Obviously, there's huge investments which we need to put in, and how can the government help? The next point is regarding the government support. This is where weaponizing the public sector procurement is crucial in attracting investments in Malaysia. When the government needs to procure, it has the potential of procuring it from an imported drug or a local drug. And there has to be this policy, which is already in place, to support local manufacturers. And the next one is regarding the regulatory landscape. As you know, the pharmaceutical production as well as drugs is a highly regulated industry. So collaborations is key, especially with the regulators, in ensuring faster access of medicines to patients. And lastly, the research and development disparity is something which needs to be addressed as we move forward. So I just want to share two examples of our members who have contributed significantly in reducing costs of treatment. First, Duo Pharma. Duo Pharma is a public listed company, and it's one of the members of MOPI. They started their cancer care journey in 2016 and started to introduce drugs which will help. Now, these drugs are manufactured locally and has provided tremendous savings to the government and to public. An example will be a drug called letrozole, which was previously procured at a tender value of 75 million ringgits by the government. When Duo Pharma brought this drug out and supplied, the tender value dropped to 3 million. That's how huge it is. The savings to the government, which indirectly goes into the patients. Those who are buying out of pocket, there's a huge saving. Another drug they introduced in 2019, collaboration with Biocon, trastuzumab, a targeted therapy biologics drug, which a huge saving. That drug was over 6,000 ringgits per vial. Today, it's under 1,000 ringgits. That huge saving is now passed on to patients and to the government. Another drug, imatinib, which is used for treatment for leukemia. Huge savings by introduction of a local product manufactured in Malaysia, approved by the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Authority, and it's been used for the last 5 years. No issue. So what I'm trying to say is, these initiatives by some of our members have benefited Malaysians. and is securing supply, continuous supply to the patients of Malaysia. Another member, Novogen, this is the newest member. They've invested quite a huge amount of money, 190 million. They're not only supplying to Malaysian market now with some of these drugs up there, but they are also supplying to the US and Europe. So they have brought down the cost of some of the drugs by about 80%. This is a huge reduction. And the government is seeing that already. Now, what I'm trying to say is, this is a vital piece in this whole fight against cancer. Right? We cannot ignore this piece, and it's a piece which we can build, and it's being built and it will grow. This is a chart from IQVIA which shows the cancer drug market in 2016 on the left, which was in total nearly 450 million. This pie on the right is the cost of cancer drugs in 2023, which is approximately $1 billion. In fact, I mentioned to you the prescription drug market is 9 billion. Cancer drugs alone comprise of 12% of the total drug market. So we cannot ignore the cost of drugs for cancer. And the fact is that the generics and biosimilars is growing. Companies like Duopharma and Novogen will grow this red slice of that pie so that it is a much, much bigger reliance on locals rather than foreign supply. Obviously, we cannot ignore the fact that the big pharma companies are investing huge amounts of money to bring in innovative drugs into Malaysia, and that's important. But where we can localize and use generics and biosimilars, that's when there would be a huge savings. My last slide is that we are working now very closely with the government to scale up the manufacturing of drugs locally, and we hope that we can build more Novogens and Duopharmas to support the growth of the Malaysian pharmaceutical market, to support the fight against the high cost of cancer drugs. Now, we can't do it by ourselves. We need a lot of support. We need skilled people. We are working with Talent Corp on this. There's a project on how we're going to develop talents locally. And then we need to also work in collaboration with global players. I heard earlier on Dr. Dipti was talking about collaborations. There could be ways where multinationals could collaborate with local companies to bring down the cost of drugs in Malaysia. And so therefore, there are ways. We cannot be working on our own, and we will need to work with a few key stakeholders to address this very important issue of cost to the patients. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That's my presentation for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. Does anyone have any questions regarding his presentation? Anyone?
Mr. Blay, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious about one question. If I'm not mistaken, most of the generic companies are based in Peninsula at the moment. Do you know of any plans of the local companies setting up companies in Borneo? Just curious, thanks.
Thank you for the question. At this moment, I don't know of any company planning to set up a manufacturing factory in Borneo, whether it's Sarawak or Sabah, but they have huge distribution centers in those states. Yeah, but I guess there will come a point in time, I don't know when there would be a viable justification to invest in the east of Malaysia, East Malaysia. Yeah.